The following program contains discussion and subject matter that may disturb or trigger some members of our audience. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Well, hello again and welcome to our latest edition of Roundtable here at Telile Community Television. My name is Adam Cooke. I'll be your host for our latest discussion on mental health in the Strait Area. This is our second consecutive week that we've gathered together people who, like myself, have struggled with mental health issues through their lives, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves to you. It's very important that we're having this particular discussion because November is Men's Mental Health Month, and male mental health issues don't always get the attention that they might need. So we want to cast some light on those with two men from our area that have had their own struggles and challenges with mental health over the years. I'm joined by Alex Forgeron of West Arichat and Bryson Syliboy of Port Hawkesbury. Alex, I'd like to start with you. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, as you mentioned, I'm from West Arichat, married, father of two, and grandfather. And I've been struggling with anxiety and panic since probably going on 15 years now. Yep.
All right, thank you, Alex. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment.
Sure.
Bryson Syliboy, tell us a bit about yourself.
My name's Bryson. I am from Port Hawkesbury, originally from Shubenacadie First Nations. Yeah, I've been dealing with mental health and anxiety since I was, in my teens. So, yeah, and right now I'm a student at NSCC.
All right, thank you. And we'll be talking about each of your own stories in just a moment. I'd just like to remind our audience, my name is Adam Cooke, and I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder 4 years ago. I have been taking medication and receiving regular counseling since that time, and I still struggle with anxiety issues straight up to this very day, and I expect to struggle with them for the rest of my life. But we are here to talk about the individual experiences that each of us has had. We are going to provide helplines and crisis lines along the bottom of our screen through the broadcast, so that if anything you hear sounds like it's something that you might need some help with, or if you have a separate issue that you might want some help with, by all means, please consider calling one of these lines, speaking to a medical professional, or just speaking to someone you trust. The bottom line, we are not doctors. We can't diagnose you, but we are here to listen, and we hope that sharing our stories will help you to be able to deal with any kind of mental health issue that you, your family, your friends, or someone else close to you might be going through at this time. I'd like to begin with you, Alex Forgeron. You mentioned that you have been dealing with these issues for about 15 years. Can you go back and tell us about when you first started to realize that there might be some problems that you needed to have addressed?
For myself, like you, I'm a entertainer, or that might be a loose term for some people, but
we entertain each other.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm involved in music quite a bit, and my first real bad panic attack occurred at a performance in Grand Anse. I think it was back around probably 2010. Anyway, general rule of thumb: you get on stage, you start at 9 o'clock, you play for an hour and a half, you take a break. Anyway, this particular night we started, and right off the bat, it hit, and say about 9:15, 20 after 9, my heart was racing, I was sweaty, I thought the end was near. So anyway, I announced the break, and I went to the bathroom, and I was sober, I hadn't had a drink or nothing, and quite frankly, I got on my knees and I prayed as hard and sincere as I could to die. Because time is all relative to the situation you're in. And from 9 to 1, when you're in a bad panic situation, it's a long 4 hours.
You
Yeah.
prayed to die, I heard.
I was hoping a drunk with a beer bottle would just come in and I know that sounds weird, and I'm not trying to freak out anybody at home, especially my kids if you're watching. Anyway, but that's the very real situation for me when you're in the midst of a bad panic attack.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you tell yourself or how you try to, get around it. You can tell people, you can tell yourself that the people are there to dance and enjoy themselves, and they can't do what you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Anxiety lies to you.
oh yeah, you can tell yourself whatever you want, and then it became a problem of alcohol for me.
Okay.
That's how I dealt with it.
Yeah. So that was how you coped. How long do you feel that you were in that pattern before you realized that you needed to seek help?
Every time I strapped my guitar on.
Really?
Yeah, every time I got on stage, that seemed to be the main trigger. But then as time went on, I noticed there was different things that would trigger it, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And it's the worst. Unless people experience it like yourself and Bryson, you can talk somebody's ear off. If they haven't actually experienced it, it's hard to put into words. But it's pretty overwhelming.
Just going to the theme, as I mentioned, on men's mental health,
Yeah.
do you find that it was harder for you as a man, and we all see the stereotypes, and we all see the stereotype of what a man is supposed to be and how he's supposed to react to a situation. Was that a roadblock for you in trying to get help?
Not a bit.
Okay.
For those who know me, especially my family, and I'm like I said, I'm a grandfather of 2 boys, and I'm a marshmallow.
Oh,
I'm not a.
old softie.
I'm not a whatever tough guy or whatever by no stretch. Especially when it comes to my grandkids, and I'm a very open book person. I'm very direct, and I can tell my story to a complete stranger, and I have no problem with it. It don't make me less of a man.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I want to return to you in just a moment. I want to turn to you, Bryson Syliboy, and ask you about the first times that you really felt that something was happening in your heart or your mind or any combination of the two, that something was happening to you in terms of your own mental health. What were your moments like?
Basically, like as Alex was saying, when you're, because I was a musician in high school, so whenever you're about to perform, you get all that anxiety and stuff. So for me, that anxiety was tenfold, So I didn't want to be the center of attention type thing. So I would refuse to take solos and be that person out in the limelight. So I never really dealt with my anxiety in that aspect because I just kind of shied away from everybody. I'm still a shy person, and I just don't like being in the limelight, even though I get thrust into it all the time.
Yes, running for political office
Yeah.
and things. Yeah,
yeah, but that gives me severe anxiety, and I don't like public speaking. Don't like doing anything like that, but I do it because I just get thrown into it. And when I am in situations like that, I get a lot of anxiety, sweating, my hands tremble, and I forget things. My mind goes totally blank. And you feel like you're an intelligent person, but in that moment you feel like you're
completely lost.
You don't know anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're lost, and you don't know, and you just stand there looking like you're blank. Yeah, and that worsens, it compounds it. Yeah, so that's what I deal with most of my life is I don't want to be the center of attention. Yeah, I just want to be in the shadows and do my thing, and that holds you back, in your life. I think a lot, and I feel like people deal with that more often than they realize.
Yeah. Now,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Adam. In contrast to Bryson, now people that know me, I'm not a shy person. by no stretch. I'm outgoing, and maybe I run off at the mouth sometimes. Who am I kidding? All the time, too much. But I just speak what's on my mind. I never think before I talk, and I'm just outgoing, and I try to get the best out of every situation that I can, and so sometimes I evaluate myself and think, well, geez, I'm outgoing, I'm not shy, I'm not introverted. Why does this happen? So Bryce is he's a shy person, whatever, and he goes through it too. So it's not isolated to one particular type of person or personality.
No.
You can attack anyone. I mean, look at yourself. You host a TV show. You're on the Hawk for how long?
5 years.
Yeah, and you were the reporter. So you would think that somebody that's thrust into that kind of situation would be the last person that should be doing the kind of things that you do.
And I mean, that's part of the reason that I wanted to have these kind of discussions as well, because anxiety has different faces. And people don't necessarily see it. I mean, it was not my intention that all three of us here were musicians, but we are. And people would look and say, well, he's comfortable being out on stage and singing or playing, and he's comfortable, I mean, I've worked in theater for many years. I've been an outgoing public person.
Yes.
But one of the things that anxiety can do to you, and I'm sure the two of you have experienced this as well, is just it paralyzes you. You cannot do something that should be as natural as anything. And I'm very, very lucky. I haven't really experienced it on stage doing any kind of performing, but I have seen other musicians around me experience that. And even in terms of my own work, I mean, I can tell you that there were times working on my other show, Telile 24/7 this week, that things that should have been easy and simple for me, like editing an interview or putting together a piece or recording a voiceover or putting a title up on the screen, they were beyond me. They were beyond me. I couldn't do it. I was paralyzed. And I was convinced that even if I did try to do it, I'd mess it up. So it's
that doesn't
astonishing.
help the problem either,
No, exactly. You have these low opinions of yourself that come from the anxiety, and I think we've all three of us here felt that at any kind of moments.
And and too with me, like being a student, I'm back in the classroom and stuff like that, and like during presentations, don't like doing them. I get anxiety doing them, or even like when we're like in discussing stuff, and the teacher would be like, "Well, do you have anything to say?" I'm like, "No, I don't," even though I do. And or like writing tests, like you get extreme anxiety like that with that. Like I know my math, I know everything like that, but I'll blank out and forget a simple formula, and that's one of the key things I need to do. And it's just it
can be
affects
triggered
your
by
whole
anything,
life.
and you don't get a heads up before it happens.
No.
Like I know myself, like again, performing, just playing for dance or whatever. You're in the middle of a song and all of a sudden, bang, you're like, and I've seen myself literally wanting to just unstrap my guitar, drop it, and run. And if you when you do happen to make it through the song and your first set, and then you go down, you're mingling with the crowd, they say, geez, you look like you're having so much fun, and you're such a natural up there. But internally, and I told these to people, I tell this to people, I said, you have no idea. You would not want to live 5 minutes inside of my head.
You're screaming internally.
Oh my God, you're in the middle of a song, and like, how you can even differentiate your mental storm versus the words of the song that you're trying to do, and how I hold it together, it baffles me sometimes, honestly.
It's like a trap door opening in your brain. And
Oh,
everything
100%.
Into
slides
another
out.
trap door.
Yeah, into another trap door. Exactly. And suddenly you feel like you're caught in a box and there's no way to get out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let me ask the two of you then, what have been your coping mechanisms? What have been your go-tos in times like this? Have you sought medical help? Just basically, how are you dealing day by day with the anxiety disorders and the mental health issues that you're facing? And Alex, I'd like to start with you.
Well, years back, it was vodka, and lots of it. And that led to a bad road. And then I sought the help of the doctors in Arichat here. And I don't know if they want their names mentioned, but so I won't mention their names.
Sure.
But they're incredible people. One guy in particular I deal with, and he's there for me all the time if I need him. And it's constantly a struggle, because you think it's today the day I'm gonna go into a panic attack or whatever. But for me, the most therapeutic thing really is talking about it. To people like yourself and Bryson and other people that go through it, because you understand, what it's like when you're in the middle of a situation.
And that was a big thing for me as well when I first started to come face to face to this in 2017, and people would say, "How are you doing?" And you know what a conversation is like. Someone will say, "How are you doing?" You're not actually supposed to give an answer. You're just supposed to say, "Oh, fine," and then move on. I started saying to people, "Well, actually, I'm not doing well. I'm really struggling with anxiety." And what I found out in doing so was that more people around me that I didn't even realize were going through the same thing and had just been looking for someone to talk to for so long.
Yeah.
So sometimes just having that conversation, bringing it out in the open, and taking away the box that we put around mental health and anxiety.
Any resource
helps.
is good. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. Bryson, what about yourself? I mean, how have you dealt with this over the years?
Mainly just, being alone. Like I enjoy or not enjoy, but like when I get wrapped up into myself and have anxiety, I tend to just go away from everybody and just be alone and deal with that way. And recently, if I'm anxious or anything like that, I'll sit down and just do some crafts. Focus my energy on doing something. And so, and another thing is online, I kind of use my social media as a diary, and put out there, hey, today I'm not feeling myself, or I'm struggling with this. I'm like, and then that just kind of gets it out of my brain and somewhere else. Yeah.
Shift your focus of the anxiety to.
Yeah, and then you see people saying the same. Similar stuff online, replying to you and be like, yeah, that's what I go through too, and stuff like that. So it feels good to get it out there.
There are a lot of hurting people out there, along with the three of us, and it's helpful sometimes not only to let this out for ourselves and kind of let the steam out of the teapot, as it were, but also to allow other people to come and say, well, I'm going through the same thing. And even broken, one of the wisest things that was ever said to me was said to me by a man who actually is my parish priest in Port Hawkesbury, Father Conrad Edwards. He said, "What is a mosaic made out of?" He said, "Broken glass." So if broken glass can make something beautiful like a mosaic, then let's allow ourselves to be broken, get the help we need, but by the same token, be honest and open about it and share it with others.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I have no qualms with, like I say, telling anybody that wants to listen. But it is a lot more effective to speak to somebody that goes through it as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
I got family, and not to harp on my family, but some of them have no idea, and you try to explain it to them in a context they understand, and, it's like asking the bottle of water to do jumping jacks. They just don't get it. You know what I mean? So
it's hard to explain it sometimes. But it's worth the try. And one of the things that I'm most grateful for is that my immediate family has been very kind and very supportive. My parents both, and my wife Kathy in particular has just been my rock through all of this.
My wife is she's my Schwarzenegger. For sure.
There you go, right on. What about yourself, Bryson? Have you found it's been easy to explain this to your family, or has it been difficult?
Not really. We don't really talk about anything. And my partner, he understands it but doesn't go through it himself. So it's hard to explain to some people, and especially some people's ideas of the definitions of it are different than yours. So they're like, well, it's not as bad as you say.
It's all in your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that statement. A guy told me that once. I nearly popped in between the eyes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
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 It's all in your head. Yeah. So is the swelling.
Yeah. But that's just it. We've heard that for years, and you hear it in rural Nova Scotia a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, just pull up your socks.
Yeah.
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 Just
Rub some dirt in it and
shake it
you'll
off.
be fine.
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I did want to ask you a couple of questions about your experience in terms of the indigenous community and whether mental health issues are taken seriously there. Let's start there. Just your immediate reaction. What do you think is the situation in Mi'kmaq communities for those who are struggling with this and need help?
Well, definitely in Mi'kmaq communities, it's a lot of the intergenerational trauma that's a result of the residential school. So that has a huge impact on that, and also the daily racism that we have to face also affects our mental health. So you gotta worry about that through that kind of lens, like a colonial lens, and understand that there are it's all interconnected, so mental health and racism and all that is all interconnected. Yeah.
And you had a hard year. I mean, the whole country had a hard year, but the graves that were found of remains at the residential schools over and over again, unmasking a truth that I think a lot of Canadians just didn't want to hear. You've been through what they were called the Indian Day School program. You have relatives that have gone through the residential schools. So, I mean, you must be seeing and must feel it personally. Just all of this being exposed and the vulnerability and the rawness that's there over and over again.
And there are hotlines for residential school survivors and their descendants to use when we have nobody to talk to. So that's a great avenue that I haven't explored yet because I have people I talk to all the time about it. But I know that it's there. So if I do need to use it, I can call these hotlines. So
good. And we were talking just before we went on the air about the situation involving Chantel Moore in northern New Brunswick, that she died at the hands of police. And the police were there, ostensibly, this is the official reason that's been given, to do a health and wellness check. And I wanted to get your thought on that and whether that plays into the psychology of people within the Mi'kmaq community just to simply reach out for help when they see what happened to Chantel Moore, and then that's how she got treated. So does that play a part in whether people reach out for help?
Yeah, for sure. I've always expressed to my partner and my friends is if there's situations where the police need to be called, you got to understand that calling the police on Indigenous people or Black people or people of color in general, there's a huge power shift dynamic in that. So, police aren't crisis,
Intervention experts.
They're not experts, you know. And so having them come in and defuse a situation isn't helpful to BIPOC people, and there is that whole issue with police brutality on Indigenous people. You see it just a couple days ago where I think it was out in the prairies where an Indigenous kid was bashed in the head for no reason by a police officer, and they had to take part of his skull off to reduce the swelling, and that was unprovoked, so having police go on to reserves and do mental health checks I think it's a deterrent.
And when that type of thing happens, I mean, it happens to anybody, and I'll throw another example out of someone barricading themselves in their home with a weapon, And, you know, we don't think that doesn't happen around here, but it's happened just within the last decade in Port Hawkesbury and in Mulgrave and in other communities local to us. And sometimes people will look at that and just kind of shake their head and tut-tut from a distance and say, if only that poor person got help. But it seems like it's only at moments like this that mental health issues are taken seriously when they should be taken seriously every day and every hour.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, for me, that's before we began taping, Adam, when they say, you know, November is Mental Health Month, again, it should be January to December.
Yes.
Every day, you know, 24 hours a day. And I'm sure help is available. And the biggest thing for me is for people to know that they're not alone in their situation. You know, like I do have a couple of friends around home, you know, I told them about it. I had taken one panic attack in particular at, it was 1:39 in the morning. I'll never forget it. It was the last one I had taken, you know, recently. And a friend of mine said, well, gee, why didn't you call me? Well, it was almost 2 in the morning. Well, so what? Call me anyway. Yeah. You know, and I know for me that door is definitely always open if somebody's going through a situation, especially of a panic or, you know, anxiety disorder, you know, situation. Absolutely call me. You know, so sometimes a friend is the best therapy you can have. Well, that's just it. And I mean, a real friend, someone who understands your situation, will take that call at 2 in the morning or 5 or in the middle of a work day. I mean, I was covering Richmond Council one night for the Reporter. I had a call in the middle of a council meeting from a friend of mine who was struggling with mental health issues, and he was in prison in Yarmouth. Yep. And he called me because he needed somebody to talk to, and I took that call. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because you need to do that. I went outside the council chambers and into the lobby and took the call, but you take that and you provide that very basic support if you're capable of doing that. Yeah. An ear can be a very powerful weapon. Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Oh, absolutely. We're heading into the home stretch of this conversation, but I wanted to ask the two of you of your thoughts about mental health issues and mental health treatment in Nova Scotia right now. We do have an actual provincial cabinet minister specifically dealing with mental health. He's Brian Comer from the riding next door, Cape Breton East. So there are dedicated resources within government to look at these issues now. But I will say that when I asked this question of our last panel, I got some very negative responses, and there's still a lot of holes to be filled and gaps to be filled. So I wanted to start with you, Alex. What's your assessment of how mental health is being treated in Nova Scotia these days? For me, it's hard to have a biased opinion because I don't have a lot of problem, you know, when I seek help. Like I said, the doctors in Arichat here are incredible, and. So for me, I wouldn't be the person to ask to get an honest answer, because I don't have an issue with it. And if I said I did, I'd be lying. I have resources available. You know, all I gotta do is make a phone call and it gets addressed. Yeah. So, but I'm sure there are people that have their struggles, and it's like every level of government and every walk of life, or whatever you want to call it, there are some things that need to be addressed and could probably be, you know, fixed. Yeah. For sure. Do you feel like the period we've been in, the pandemic, with all the isolation, all the social distancing, do you feel that that's made it harder either for yourself and for people in general that do struggle with mental health issues? I asked myself that question the other day. Okay. And my honest answer is no. We are in a pandemic, and it's crappy times for everybody. It may bring on some anxiety to some people that maybe didn't notice it before, but being isolated or, you know, not being able to get out and socialize as much as they did before might compound the problem a little bit. But for me, this has been going on for, like I said, about 10, 15 years, so this pandemic wasn't a big influence on it. Okay, so it was basically, all right, I'm dealing with it anyway. Let's go with the next step. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Bryson, Syliboy, same question to you. We've talked a little bit about the difficulty for BIPOC people to be able to get
access to mental health or be treated properly. What do you think, looking at the lay of the land in Nova Scotia overall in terms of mental health issues?
Well, it definitely needs to be ramped up, especially for like BIPOC people. Like sometimes we want to talk to somebody who's Mi'kmaq or who's Black, or like, sometimes you want to talk to a gay person, a lesbian, transgender person, because you want to talk to somebody who represents you. So we need more diversity in our counselors, for these programs, and a lot of it too is accessibility as well. Not everybody has a car to get to an appointment, because like somebody in Arichat here has to go to Port Hawkesbury or Antigonish, or even Sydney. Some people can't do that, can't even afford to do that. Especially with the price of gas now, or like, with the pandemic going on right now, a lot of things have switched online. So you have Zoom meetings with mental health professionals, and some people don't have access to the internet or reliable internet. There's still people in rural areas that are on dial-up. And we're in 2021, almost 2022, or like they don't have computers or webcams. So there's a lot of that accessibility like that, and also even accessibility for disabled people or people who are deaf or blind. So I think it's a good start, but it needs to be broadened more.
There are gaps to be filled.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And so like, not necessarily, because like Nova Scotia is very rural. There's not that much urban spaces in Nova Scotia, unlike like Ontario. It's mostly urban.
Drive out of one city, you head into another city.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So like we gotta understand that we have to focus more on the rural areas than our urban right now, because urban centers have tons of resources already. So yeah.
You were talking about the importance of serving the LGBTQI community as well, and you mentioned your partner a while back. You are a two-spirit. So what do you feel things are looking at in terms of mental health service for the LGBTQI community? Is it getting better? Could it be improved? What are you feeling?
Oh yeah, it definitely can be improved. Like everything can be improved for
Yes.
The two-spirit LGBTQ community. Resources are still lacking in that aspect, but there are more and more organizations out there focusing on queer mental health and stuff like that. So
Okay, good. What would either of you say to somebody watching right now who may be struggling with this, may have a family member or a friend or a colleague struggling with this? They haven't taken that first step yet. They may be afraid to take that first step. What would either of you say to them at this point?
Well, for me, personally speaking, from my own experience, I would say you're not alone again, and there's you're maybe not feeling well, but you're not sick. You're not you're not a disease. You're not you're not something that should be cast aside.
Yeah.
You're a person, and there's help out there for sure.
And I mean, the idea too that the idea of a mental health day has almost become a joke in some circles. But you need that. I mean, if you have the flu or if you have COVID-19, you're not going into work.
Yeah.
Right. But we don't give ourselves the same self-care for our mental health as we do for our physical health. So
that's right.
So good stuff. Bryson, the same question to you. What would you say to anybody watching right now that might be looking for help?
Well, what I would say is, you're a valid person. Your feelings are valid. You're a valid person. You're a valued person in people's lives. So right now you're at your lowest. there's help out there for you, and you know, it's all there for you to become the better person.
Well, I'd like to thank once again Bryson Syliboy from Port Hawkesbury and Alex Forgeron from West Arichat. It has been great to have you two, and I appreciate not only your honesty but your bravery in sharing your individual stories here. This is Roundtable from Telile Community Television. Thank you for tuning in, and we will have more coverage of mental health issues coming on future Telile programs. For now, thank you again to Alex and to Bryson. I'm Adam Cooke. We'll see you next time.